Yo, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, welcome back to another Anthem video. And in this one, I want to talk to you guys about the most recent round of closed alpha feedback for Anthem. Just last night, Ben Irving made a post on the Anthem subreddit where he spoke about a recent closed alpha test they ran internally, and he spoke about the various different areas they were testing, the feedback they got from players, and he wanted to sort of share that with the wider community to show how they are going to be actioning that feedback and the changes they're going to be implementing based on what players said. So in this video, I thought we'd go over that and talk about the areas that they discussed. So if you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below if you have any questions. Also, if you guys haven't entered our giveaway for the Spider-Man PS4 Pro, there is still time to enter. This is the last week for that, so definitely click that link if you haven't done so already. And of course, if you guys don't want to miss any of our future Anthem uploads, you can click that notification button to stay up to date every time we upload a new video. Now, as always, if you guys want to read this for yourself, I will link the original Reddit post in the description box down below. We're going to go over it and talk about the various different sections. So to begin with, Ben started off by saying, and I quote, "Anthem is now in alpha, and we've passed a major milestone with our first closed alpha test. This closed alpha was an internal technical test to run the water through our metaphorical pipes and assess the game in a live environment. We ran tests, did hotfixes, and adjusted servers on the fly, the way we will when the game is live. The goal was to test our server technology, patching, and a subset of content with a small group of players. Only the first 3 missions of the game were available, and all pilots were capped at level 5. So this is a very typical thing when you are running alpha tests. This is something that I've experienced myself back in the days when I used to, test games for a living, but this is one of those things where they will give you a very kind of restricted area within the game, and that is essentially what you test. So this isn't going to give people the chance to play the entire game. This isn't necessarily going to give them a feel for what the entire game is like. And, chances are, in this situation, players wouldn't have had a chance to experience, say, the end game. This is just them testing a very specific area of the game. That being said, within that, they were still exposed to a variety of different aspects. And the main points of focus within that were loot, missions, progression, and playing with your friends. So, talking about those in slightly more detail, under the loot section, they said that loot is of course a critical part to upgrading your javelin and leveling up. Alpha players let us know that during their time in Anthem, loot drops weren't frequent enough and were hard to spot out in the open world. Now, we've seen them in kind of the gameplay right now. They drop as these little sort of pyramid or diamond-shaped, I guess, crystals, if you want to describe them that way. They're kind of like engrams from Destiny, but I was trying to use a different comparison. Basically, they drop on the floor and they float down. And I encountered, I think, 1 on my time playing through when I was at E3. So, I didn't necessarily see that many in a short demo frequency, but knowing that players have played it for a little bit longer and they haven't necessarily seen too many, this is something that they've already actioned. They have said in their feedback that they are going to be doing a pass on the frequency of loot drops to try and make the game feel more rewarding as you're playing through. They did also call out that it's worth noting loot is personal. So, when you are exploring the world and you shoot something and it drops for you, doesn't necessarily mean that other people will see that. And of course, when if you defeat a boss or you complete a mission and loot drops, that loot is just for you. So there's not going to be any loot ninjaing or anything like that. It is, what you see is for you. And with regards to actually collecting the loot, they say that once you've obtained it, all the loot you've obtained will be accessible back at Fort Tarsis when you complete your mission. Now, this is kind of something we've seen from the gameplay, because when they opened up chests before, we've seen that it's kind of called out, like, you might have got a weapon part, or you might have got, like a particular weapon, but it hasn't called out specifically what it is. So I'm assuming by this, it means that you then have to go back and decode the items as opposed to physically obtaining them on the fly. With regards to missions, they then said that we wanted to help players ease into the dangerous world outside of Fort Tarsis. So with that in mind, they limited the difficulty of the first few missions and cut down on how many different kind of creatures were roaming around the world. However, during the feedback, players did say that they wanted more challenges sooner, so they've also done additional passes to balance the game on the 3 different difficulty levels. And they'll be adding more creature variety earlier on in the game. So hopefully that means that when, we ultimately play through it, we'll be kind of encountering a lot more stuff early on, as opposed to, kind of going through those tutorial cookie cutter enemies that you fight for, your first 5 levels, get a little bit bored of before you start to see the really exciting stuff. It's kind of cool. I always like it in these kind of games if you encounter some slightly stronger, more challenging enemies early on, even if you can't really defeat them or shouldn't really be fighting them. I like to kind of see those things as things to aspire towards, things to like, work towards or try and risk it. I mean, I'm kind of that guy in these sort of games that sees something that I probably shouldn't be fighting and still tries to fight it, because you got to do these things, right? I'm Colossus Gang. I'm going to run in with my shield and just try and fire my machine gun in its face. Anyway, point is, they're going to be adding some more creature variety earlier on in the missions. With regards to progression, they said that leveling systems, how to spend skill points, and how to use the forge to equip gear were not always clear to the alpha players. However, the core reason for that is because their tutorials for those features weren't in at the time of testing. They did also say that some leveling actions, like unlocking new javelins, were visible in the menus but not accessible during the alpha. So they said from this, one of the things they want to make sure they focus on is finishing those tutorials, and they will then do another testing round to kind of seek their effectiveness and work out if they accurately convey the way the game is played. They did also make a note that a lot of players actually asked if they could kind of extend the time that they were allowed to fly, and bear in mind we know that this is tied to your freelancer tree, so your freelancer can, jump between different javelins, and perks like extended flight time, extended swim time, those are tied to your freelancer, and of course since the alpha they were testing was only early game, they didn't get a chance to actually experience that. So again, that's one of the kind of things you experience when you do test a very small segment of a game like this. And then finally, the last pillar was of course playing with friends. They said that multiplayer is an important part of Anthem, so they wanted to make sure that it was as smooth and easy to use as possible. They said that some of their alpha players mentioned that they ran into difficulties trying to form groups with friends, and they couldn't always tell if their teammates had successfully joined their party. So they've also added several systems that they think will help. They've added join and leave notifications. They've also added some tutorials in. They've also added add, kick and leave features, kind of accessible in different areas. And they said that some players, they found it was kind of hard to find their teammates, so they've also added additional UI elements to make it easier to locate your team around the world. So they were kind of the main things they wanted to test during the initial closed alpha. Now, again, there's a lot of stuff we still have questions about, and I think a lot of our questions typically lie more so with endgame. We kind of want to know sort of, what does the end game look like? But right now, for their testing purposes, there's of course, other things they need to handle. And I've seen a few comments in the past, from people saying, why is the game in alpha when it's supposed to be releasing in a few months? This is typical time frame for video games. Like, you go from alpha to beta very quickly. And, having this test period now, you'll find that, within this kind of period of time, it's largely speaking feature locked. They've mentioned this already, that a lot of the core features are in the game. They're, of course, then testing, some of the user experiences more so now. And then once they've got past that, they'll very quickly go into beta. And from that, we'll, of course, approach the public beta and, of course, the playtest and then launch. So things should be tracking along quite nicely. Anyway, for the time being, that is pretty much it. There wasn't a great deal to glean from that, but I do really appreciate the fact that they are being transparent with their testing process. Often when it comes to things like closed alpha, you just don't really hear anything about it. They run their tests, they take their feedback, but they never really communicate that because, quite frankly, it's not necessarily interesting or relevant to the broader audience. It just kind of gives them their information and then they can move on. So the fact they're actually being transparent and telling us about their testing process, telling us the things they are testing and how they're kind of actually taking that feedback and improving it is actually really welcome. I definitely like this kind of more open approach. So if we can get more of that, that would be really, really awesome. But for the time being, that was a quick summary of the stuff they've been testing so far. So if you guys have any more questions, again, by all means, let me know in the comments down below. We can kick off a discussion about kind of things that you would like to see. But besides that, be sure to keep it locked for plenty more Anthem coverage. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to check out some more awesome stuff from us here at Arekkz Gaming, then you should definitely try to catch 269 and Paradise Central streaming 6 days a week. You can find a link to the multi-stream in the description box down below. They play a wide range of games, and what's more, we also have the end game store. By watching their streams, you earn currency, and you can redeem that currency on the endgame store for really cool prizes. Those can range from things like games, comics, and figures, all the way up to controllers, capture cards, and even consoles. So definitely drop by and become part of the community. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, then make sure you're subscribed and be sure to click on that little bell icon to turn on notifications so you don't miss our next upload. You can watch more videos by clicking on the options here. But once again, thanks very much for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.